So I'm going to show you how to scout a vineyard for trunk disease. We're actually in a vineyard where we suspect that trunk disease is a major issue. One of the reasons is that during the growing season you see very low growth or very weakened growth. In this case, we're here in the dormant season before these vines have been pruned, and there is not much canopy here. It didn't even fill the trellis wire last year. And so we're going to do some investigation. So if you have a block that you think might have trunk disease, you can come out and flag the vines during the year if you see some issues. In this case, there's a whole lens here that we could work with. And we're going to cut into the plant, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So you want to start at the extremities. So in this case, we're going to start at the end of the cordon here, at the top of the spur, and just start cutting into it. I'm looking for any damage. So right there, the first cut, right there at the top, has some necrotic tissue there in a pie shape. Classic literature would say that this is eutypa, but other trunk diseases can actually lead to that phenolic discoloration of the wood. So it's best to actually test it. But we're going to go a little bit further and just cut in. And see here we have pretty much about 80% of this cross-section of the cordon is necrotic, so it's probably not viable and functioning, and only this white area was. So we'll keep cutting back. There again, the light brown is not functional, the kind of tan color is. So now we see that it's getting a little bit better. Smaller cross-section that's brown. And here's a spur. This looks pretty good. Not a lot of necrotic tissue there. That's probably what allowed it to grow last year. And here again, we've got kind of 2 points of problem areas, but still some healthy conductive tissue. So this is the head of the plant. Just cut off that one spur that's for renewal, and you can see again, large percentage of that is unhealthy. This right here, the white is healthy. So now I'm not gonna cut into this part of the cordon because it grew into the wire. Instead, I'm gonna start cutting into the head of the plant. Basically looking for where the origin of the infection would have came. In this point, it looks like it would have been up top in the cordon or in the spurs. And we'll see how far it's gone into the plant. Typically, the trunk disease pathogens will work their way down. So we see we have some necrotic areas there. We'll go a little bit further. And here we've got quite a large area. It's a little bit hard unless I cleaned it off to see, but you can see a lot of dead tissue there. Looks like some damage came in the side here, probably from a sucker. Still some healthy parts along the edge. They did leave a renewal spur down here at the bottom for in case we could get below the cankers. So it looks like we have a healthier portion, but there's still trunk disease there in the trunk. We'll cut a little bit. Oh, so we're getting below it. So it hasn't made its way completely down, but it is concerning when you see these black specks there. There's some trunk diseases that will have that as one of its symptoms. And here we see like another point of entry of potential infection. So this plant has probably got trunk disease all the way down to the roots and might need to be completely replaced. Also, the fact that it was having some productivity issues, very low yields, low shoot growth, probably means that the plant will have to be pulled out completely. If it was the fact that we could get down pretty low and have a healthy tissue, meaning it's all creamy colored white, then we would have healthy growth, and we could basically cut out the canker, but in this case it's already gone down to the roots. If you want to get this a plant like this tested to see what kind of trunk disease is actually there, you can dig out a plant and send it to a diagnostic lab and have them do tests on what actually is growing. It can take a while because they actually culture it out and see what kind of fungal pathogen is in there. My suspicion is it's probably multiple, because there are 133 species of trunk diseases, or 133 trunk disease species, 34 genera that can be causing trunk disease in grapevine. So it could be any one of those, and we've got multiple probably at play here. So this is a vine in the same block as the last one where we had the weak vines. This is a healthy vine that doesn't look to be impacted in a productivity sense. That it's got canopy that grew really well, was able to be hedged off. And we're going to scout for trunk disease in this one, starting with that same process of starting at the very end of the cordon and cutting away the spurs. Oh, so here's a good example. So I cut 2 spurs. One was pretty healthy here, but then this one over here, pretty big section there that was infected, probably from a shoot that was pruned back here before. Some more examples of some trunk disease possibly in that. Now here, this one looks pretty healthy. Just some necrotic areas down the middle. And a completely healthy cut would look much like this one here, where you might have some tan, or brown, I should say, in the very center, in that pith area, but then you'll have the xylem should be kind of a whitish tan, should not look brown in any way. So here's an example of where an entry point of the disease probably came in here from an old cut from a spur. And then I'm not going to cut this cordon, maybe I'll cut it right here because it's growing into the wire. Oh, it doesn't look too bad. So just that there's still some examples here. The speckling and the black, that might suggest there's some trunk disease there. It looks like some entry points might have been from the spurs itself. Cut that wire. So we still have some necrotic areas here. So still some evidence of trunk disease. And we can see there's a nice healthy ring around the outside, but you still have some of that traveling down into the middle of this head of the trunk. So I'm going to go pretty low here, and there's some spurs that they left, or some canes that they left, in anticipation of being able to perhaps cut out the cankers and retrain the trunk. So we see that still pretty evident here in the mid trunk. Again, getting this a little bit smaller, so because these tend to grow from up to down, but still a canker there. Again, still seeing it pretty low. If we cut much lower, we're going to be into the rootstock. So probably there is trunk disease throughout this replant. And again, if we want to diagnose which one is there, we could even send these chunks into a diagnostic clinic. They can use that to culture out and see what is actually in there. And there are quite a few different trunk disease species, so to determine which one is there is helpful when we are at an earlier stage in the infection process, but at this point pretty much would have to be replanted. And in this case, this block was problematic and showing some productivity decreases in yield and just canopy growth. So it would have to be a replanting situation.